people signed up at the on Sunday evening. Wow. For all the races.
You check that block, right?
Yeah, no, I'm done with that.
You're done with that. I didn't want signed up for that.
Oh,
I'll stick with the 5K.
Thank you too.
Ryan, the one, yeah.
Scheduled to do. Yeah. How many? It's 4, because we have 3 days and 2 on the break or something. Yeah. Sounds like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Oh,
And a couple, one of those. Yeah, I think Tuesday or Wednesday, we have one in the morning and one in the afternoon. We'll see.
all right. It's 10 o'clock. I just want to remind everybody that the meeting is live streamed. So if you do have something to say in open forum or during the presentation, please step up to the podium so everybody can hear you. With that, we will call the meeting to order and we'll rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It is time for public forum. Anybody that wishes to speak, please step up to the podium, state your name, and we'll give you 3 minutes. So, ready?
Go first.
All right.
My name is Brad Willoughby. I'm a 24-year veteran of the United States Army. And ever since I retired in 2016, I've been looking for land. And I've gone through hundreds of properties. I've visited 20 in person, many via link and the 3D tours that you can take online, websites and stuff like that. Many of them here in Pine County. And my business partner and I, we want to open a resort / campground with standalone mini cabins, not RVs, no campers, because we don't want a lot of large vehicles rolling through the streets and the roads of wherever we plan to settle. We want a piece of land with trees. We won't be selling the lumber. We want to work with nature. We don't want to cut a lot down. We're only going to cut down absolutely what we need. And then that lumber and stuff will be reused on site. Won't be sold, obviously there may be some vegetation that'll be burned, but we plan on using that wood. A few months ago, my realtor found a piece of property here. Went to look at it twice. Went to the township meeting where we presented our plan and an idea for our resort. Well, we were immediately shut down when we requested a conditional use permit. Now, the township had alone the authority to approve or deny that. So we had to keep looking. So at the meeting, I found out about the Pine County auction site for land. Worked with a few people, including my realtor. And I was introduced to JJ, Commissioner Waldom, and I found a bunch of properties that would be potentially good enough for what we wanted to do. So we sorted through all these different properties. Most were either not accessible by a main road or there was way too much wetland. However, we did find a 100-acre parcel that just so happened to be on the auction. So I called the land management office and spoke to Greg. We spoke at length. The other properties that I had potentially picked out were not for sale, were being used for lumber or gravel, or had been voted in by the commissioners into a protected forest. So from what I've learned is that the council voted these properties to that protected area, and I'm guessing that they can vote them right back out if they wanted to. So the 100-acre property that was on the auction, parcel number 13, was listed at $250,000. This is what Greg told me, that it was appraised at, and that is what the bidding will start at. Well, I'm not sure how many of you have been to auctions, but that's not how auctions work. You start low, you get a bidding war, and then the price goes up. You don't ask for something at the minimum price that you'll take. So the Minnesota state statute states, block F, I'm going to need my glasses for this one. If real estate or personal property remains unsold after advertising for and consideration of bids or proposals, the county may employ a broker to sell the property. The broker may sell the property for not less than 90% of its appraised market value as determined by the county. The broker's fee shall not be set by agreement with the county, but may not exceed 10% of the sale price and may be paid from the proceeds of the sale. Now, this is Minnesota State Statute 373.01.
Is this, are you near the end of your presentation? Because at open forum, we have 3 minutes to present.
Sure.
Something. It sounds to me like you have something that's quite lengthy and needs some discussion.
Well, I can make it pretty quick.
Okay.
I can get to the point here.
All right.
How much time do I have left? Would you be able to tell me that, please?
You're at 4.5 minutes now.
Already. Okay. Well, I'll make it quick then.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to relinquish my 3 minutes to this gentleman.
Well,
I'd like to hear what he has to
time's
say.
going, so you got 2.5 minutes.
So you interrupt me, so that uses up my time. Okay. All right. So basically it says that the county can decide whether or not to sell these pieces of property. So I've took the liberty of having my own person go out to this piece of property and look at it. They've done a 1-year analysis of the surrounding areas of properties similar to this. And the prices that you guys are getting for this size of property is $178,000 on average, not $250,000. So I'm here to petition the board to allow me to buy this piece of property, but I'm not going to pay $250,000 for it because it's overpriced. I told Greg that when we spoke on the phone. He said it will sell, and it didn't. So I'm here to offer $180,000 for that piece of property, which is what it's valued at, based on my persons that went out there to look at it. So if you won't sell me the property, can you tell me why? And if you can't, then I know that the local government voted this rule into place. Why can't you make an exception? I know that the local government has waived property tax to help businesses get started, tax income financing, tax abatement, for example. And the definition of tax abatement is a method for adjusting a property's taxes by charging the market value or classification associated with that property. So I ask again, can I petition the commission to allow this property to be sold? Since it didn't sell on auction, you have someone interested in that property, and nobody here wants to pay more property taxes. And I have 4 other people that want to buy property here as well. I want to build my business, which will raise my property taxes because I plan on putting about $400,000 worth of buildings on there to start. We want to put 20 cabins, 4 owner cabins, a community center, and a general store where we want to use locally grown vegetables, meat, and goods from the community. We're not going to outsource. We're going to bring stuff in. Local honey, local vegetables, local meat, all sourced here. So I want that piece of property. You didn't have anybody that was interested in it. It had no bids. It's not worth $250,000. So I request that you sell me this piece of property. Again, my name is Brad Willoughby. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, we'll move on to the agenda. Got some additional information.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the board, there's additional information from the insurance committee and a recommendation for rates for 2024. And that is for agenda item number 1 on the regular agenda.
Otherwise, the agenda stands as printed.
I'll make a motion to accept the amended agenda.
Second. Ludwig.
Motion by Lundgren, second by Ludwig. Any discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll move on to the minutes of September 19th, 2023, special meeting, committee of the whole, labor negotiations, and September 19th, county board minutes and summary for publication.
I'll move them.
I'll second them.
Motion by Moore, seconded by Lovegren. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then under boards reports and correspondence, we got the Chemical Health Coalition, September 14th. Pine County Surveyor monthly report for September, and the Toward Zero Death Stakeholders Meeting invitation, which is scheduled for October 24th.
I'll move them, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion by Ludwig. Seconded by Moore. Any discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda, you've had that for some time.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll move on to the health insurance or the regular agenda, which first item is health insurance committee report. Matt, you wanna? Sure. I'll start out.
We had the committee meeting and the discussion was to make a decision between 8.5, a 9, or a 10% increase to the premium. And there's a lot of discussion, and after all said and done, the committee suggested to go to a 9%. Took the middle ground between the 8.5 and the 10. Which puts us in pretty good shape for self-funding and.
I thought it was a great discussion.
Mhm.
You know, the employees, of course, if anytime there's an increase, they have more money coming out of their check, and I understand that. We all understand that, but we also have to protect ourselves. To have enough money in cash reserves to handle any unforeseen difficulties we might have.
Yeah, well, there was a vote in the
Yeah.
committee and it was the employees carried the vote at 9, so.
Yep. Yep. So I thought it was a great discussion, so.
Yeah, I will move that for. The board to accept the 9% increase on that.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'm still stuck on 10,
Yeah.
just because, just because we need to get the funds up there. And then if next year's a good year, then we can come down. But, I'll go with what you decided.
Yeah. I think that was the, what discussion too, you know, but, appreciate that. Any more questions, discussion?
Yeah, there's a reserve of 715,471 in there. If I read right on here.
Yeah, but Kelly, is that before the settlement with you?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that is before the 300,000, I'm sorry, before the $331,000 payment to UHC. So that needs to come off of the 700,000 to get the actual balance.
What again is UHC?
United Healthcare.
United Healthcare.
Yeah, so those are claims that were incurred
There,
when we were under United Healthcare for insurance.
it was the final cleanup bill with them. Any other questions?
Well, I think it's worth noting that report that Gallagher gave us was that generally speaking, across the state, it was running between 7.5% and 8.5% on insurance increases. So we gained a lot of ground with our self-insurance that will come down into our, so another year, hopefully, or so, you know, it doesn't happen in 1 year or 2 years.
Right.
Then we just switched again, so.
We need to remind ourselves of the reason we went to our self-insured model was for rate stability. And when we look at some of the other large pools in the state, those rates are all over the board.
Yeah,
Some as high as 19 and 17%. So, you know, it's based on usage. And so the key is to keep all the employees as healthy as possible. Because that's what drives the cost. No other questions? We'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next up is the Initiative Foundation update. Carl Dubay.
Morning, Commissioners, Mr.
Morning.
Chair. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning and have a few minutes of time just to give a quick update on the Initiative Foundation's activities across the region, but specifically here in Pine County over the last year. I'm not sure if the packet has the impact update in it. So you have access to that, and I'll just kind of walk through these numbers here and then give a update of some more recent impact stats. This document, again, as always, captures our impact since 1986 here in Pine County. And there's lots of ways to measure the work we do. One of the ways we try and distill that impact down is just kind of in this ROI number in terms of what's been collected from the county in contributions and then what the investment back into the county has been. So you can see about $885,000 in donations since 1986 and about $7 million back into the county. That's in terms of grants made and lending projects that we have been able to deploy in the county. Always like to point out our ROI number. It's impossible for us to calculate things like staff time, mileage, all those sorts of investments the foundation makes. We just can't track it and calculate it. So this is just kind of a pure contributions from the county and our investment back in grants and lending dollars, et cetera. So we're happy to have such a good impact here in Pine County. And down at the bottom, you can see just some of those numbers broken down into some specific categories. 641 grants, $4 million. Again, our revolving loan fund that we operate across the region is a great resource. Typically that operates for gap financing. We don't compete with local financial institutions, so we partner with them. They will usually bring projects to us. Typically plays out something like this. You know, they'll approach us and say, this is a great project in a rural community. We really believe it's healthy. It's going to provide jobs, but as a financial institution, we're uncomfortable covering, let's say it's a $400,000 project and they might say, we just want to only cover $280,000 of it. Could we talk the foundation into coming in and providing, you know, the gap, taking a second position in the loan, et cetera. That's what our revolving loan fund is for. We're mission driven with it. So most of our lending projects we're filling those gaps to help projects move forward in rural communities. So happy to do that. Continue to work hard. We just hired an additional loan officer because there's so much demand and we just felt like we were taking too long to get to some of those projects. So we've hired staff to help kind of increase our capacity in that area. Another neat number related to that is the leverage dollars. Of course, every loan project that we help make happen generally is attracting external funds from somewhere. So brought in that $11.5 million in outside capital into the region as a result of those projects. Again, since 1986 here, but close to 600 jobs created or retained in the county. So happy to present those stats as a measure of our impact. And again, everything we do, we try to center in local leadership. We don't have all the answers in Little Falls. We really aspire to gather local leaders, identify solutions, identify challenges. How can we move those forward? We'd like to deploy our resources to move those forward. Well, we're really good at helping folks find access and gather external resources to come in, help all those community identified solutions kind of take those next steps. So we're happy to continue to do that work. Some more recent examples of that would be our efforts to continue to address access to affordable childcare. We see this as a continuing significant barrier to workforce development. We continue to work across the region. I think we are helping support a conference coming up or a recent conference that just happened on Saturday. We're happy to be a part of that. Again, part of our mission to get community stakeholders together. What are the issues? How can we help solve that? We continue to work with Pine Technical Community College. They have now the name escapes me. It's a childcare certificate program. We are happy to help folks graduate from that program with no debt. Since it started, we think about 41 folks have graduated and achieved that certificate. And again, we just continue to try and find out what are the solutions and how can we help move them forward. Especially with childcare, we've seen lots of communities take different approaches, a community-centered approach, multiple in-home centers, pooling resources, the pod approach where different childcare providers share space. So we're advancing all of these initiatives across the region. We hope to see more funding from the state and from the Department of Education to help us continue to work with childcare providers, but happy to see some of that activity happening here in Pine County. Pine City is continuing to participate in our Main Street Economic Revitalization Program, which was a project through DEED. And I think recently we have received funding in partnership with the Compere Rural Collaborative project. And I think the city, Pine County, has been invited to participate in that project as well. So happy to continue to bring those external resources into the region and put them to work, and then combine our own resources with that as well. Again, just for a real quick snapshot of recent updates in 2022, 30 grants were deployed in Pine City, $258,000. And in the last 2 years, we participated in 2 lending projects, about $180,000 in gap financing, creating or retaining about 7 jobs here in Pine County. For the sake of time, I could leave it at that, but I'd be happy to take any questions. And again, thank you for your annual contribution, and we put it to good work and leverage our list of donors and funders, often with federal and state funding opportunities to show, support for our work. Be happy to take any questions.
Anybody?
This is quite a list. Thank you for doing this for our residents.
Absolutely happy to do it. Hope to continue to increase our impact is what we'd love to see.
The opportunities that your foundation has afforded many groups in Pine when they have a project. And the first thing is to get a plan and get some money together to build a solid plan.
Right.
And that's sometimes the stumbling block that if there's no funds available, you can't even get out the gate.
That's right.
And foundation has really been good about that.
Always happy to provide that seed money when we can, for sure.
Well, thank you for making the trip, and thanks for the update.
Yep. Thanks for your support. And like I say, our biggest challenge is just keeping informed. So don't ever hesitate to reach out, communicate with us, let us know what the needs are, opportunities.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thank you.
It is National 4-H Week, and Sarah's going to give us an update on Pine County Extension 4-H Youth Development.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. My name is Sarah Odendahl. I'm the extension educator for Pine County 4-H. And it is National 4-H Week. This is a time when alumni, youth, volunteers, families, supporters, we all come together and celebrate everything that can and has been achieved through 4-H Youth Development Program. 4-H has a really long and rich history, and Minnesota is an important part of that history because one of the first of what would become a 4-H club was started in Douglas County in 1902. And it's been over 120 years since then. We've come a really long way from those corn and tomato club days. We love our agricultural roots, but 4-H is helping youth build skills in communication, STEM, healthy living, leadership, you name it, we're working on it with youth. 4-H programs and extension across the nation have taken part in research. We've developed new models for how we support youth and how we make a greater impact on them. And it's through that research that we know that 4-H members are 2 times more likely to make healthy choices than their non-4-H peers, and they're 4 times more likely to give back to their communities. We actually know that last year, 79% of Minnesota 4-H members volunteered in their community as part of their 4-H program. We also know that it's not just youth. 86% of Minnesota 4-H volunteers have said that they gain skills through volunteering that then apply to other parts of their life and make an impact on them as well. Minnesota 4-H reaches over 40,000 youth per year. Minnesota is also home to Nicole Cash, who is the 2023 Youth in Action STEM Award winner, which is a national award from the National 4-H Council. And I wanted to share, we have been bringing in lots of information lately as we were wrapping up our program year. And I have a scholarship application from a local 4-H member who is talking about the impact that 4-H made on her life and on her career trajectory. When I started in 4-H, I just thought, oh, fun, I get to play with pigs. That was it. I didn't think that there would be anything else to come from it. As I progressed further and learned more, I grew a deep passion for not only the care of pigs, but the sharing of the knowledge I gained. When people had questions about pigs, I found myself jumping at the opportunity to answer. I could feel myself growing more confident in myself and my ability to communicate with others the more I learned and shared. I didn't really start thinking seriously about my future career until my junior year of high school. On a whim, I decided to take a few classes related to medicine and fell in love. The passion I developed for learning about medicine and how the body functions is parallel to that of my passion for 4-H and pigs. This is when I really started to look into nursing. I really loved the career, but I felt doubtful when I realized how much of a social job it is, and I will be responsible for people's health and well-being every day. This doubt did not last long, though, because I remembered that I am capable of such a task. I remembered what my passion for 4-H and pigs gave me. We know as the 4-H program that we cannot achieve our goals without partners in the community. And so today I would really like to thank you for being one of those supportive partners and for helping us come together and make an impact on Pine County youth. So with that, I appreciate your time and I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Well, first of all, you talked about awards and you forgot one award. Because I got this little thing in my hand that says, congratulations to Pine County 4-H Youth Development Educator Sarah Odendahl. Last week, Sarah Odendahl was honored as part of the Northeast Regional Anti-Racism Collective Leadership Team and is receiving the Dean's Distinguished Diversity Team Award. So Sarah, congratulations and thanks for
Thank you.
stepping out of your, maybe that's out of your comfort zone a little bit.
It has been a challenge, but it has been a privilege. I was blindsided by that award. I did not know that we had been nominated for that. So we were quite surprised to find that, but it's been very exciting. Thank you.
Well, thanks for what you're doing. I think every adult in this room needs to take some bit of responsibility for spreading the word to youth to be involved in 4-H, because I think if you ask Jeff and you ask Reese, how many 4-H kids they put in the back of a squad car and Reese has to take up to court, the number would be somewhere between 0 and 0.0. So I think if we want to move the needle, it's a good place to start. So thanks for what you're doing, and we'll try to do our part.
Thank you. I will just plug, we have an open house tonight up at the Hinckley Finlayson High School Community Ed Rooms. So it's on our website. If anybody wants to come, give me a call, but we'll be hopefully meeting a lot more new families tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
We're looking for the reappointment of the Housing Authority, HRA, EDA Commission. We're looking to reappoint Trevor Gaylor, who's been on the district board from representing District 3.
I'll make a motion to accept Trevor.
Oh, sorry.
Motion made and seconded to reappoint Trevor Gaylor to the HRA EDA board. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And now the 22 audit and financial statement. Kelly, you're gonna lead us through that?
We do have printed copies for you guys too, but it was not in the packet. The actual presentation.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So I'm Kelly Schroeder, County Auditor Treasurer. And so hopefully last week or early this week, you all got your copy of the actual financial statements in the mail. You didn't, Terry, yet. All right, well, it's coming. It's probably there today. And so my presentation today really just walks you through the high points because there's 100 and some pages here and you may get put to sleep if you try to read it, but I just want to walk through some of those important things and also just kind of highlight a few places where you might have questions if you were to be perusing through it. So just a quick overview of what this document is. So there's two sections of the document. So the first one is just the general financial statements. And there's really four big parts to those financial statements. So management discussion and analysis, if you're going to start anywhere in the financial statements, which yes, it's at the beginning, but that's the best place to start because that is kind of the narrative of what all of it means. And it's put into kind of nice wording where anybody can understand it and you don't have to be an accountant to follow it. And then you move into the basic financial statement. So you've got like your balance sheet and different types of required financial statements within there. And we're going to look at some of that data today. And then we've got our required supplementary info and then our other supplementary info. And so just within the accounting principles, there's things that we have to address, kind of like our post-employment benefits and things like that, that we have to address in our financial statements. And then there's other things that we just can address. And so like some of our joint powers things and stuff like that is in that other supplementary information. And then towards the end of the report is the actual audit, the audit report, which is completed by the state auditor's office. So it has several different sections. So the one is the management and compliance report. So that really looks at our processes and our statutory requirements and how we follow those and if they meet accounting principles. And then it actually issues opinions on both our financial statements and then we have to have a single audit, so a review of our federal programs. And so those are two separate audit reports that they issue. And we'll kind of dig into those here as we go. So just a quick overview, and these are right out of that management discussion and analysis. So you'll find these, for example, on page 9 of the actual book. But I always like to just look at this because it's a quick, easy, where do our revenues come from? And I like to compare where did they come from last year and where did they come from this year? So the one on the lower left is from the last year and the one on the upper right is from this year. So it's always a little interesting to see how do we pay for what we're doing. And so you can see property taxes last year was about 41% of our revenues. This year it's about 2022 was about 40%. And like our operating grants and contributions made up a little bit more than it did in the past. Same with our fees, charges, and other types of items such as that. And so you can kind of just compare the 2 years and it tells a story of how do we pay for what we do, because it's not all property taxes like a lot of folks think. The next slide is really exactly the same, but it looks at the expenses and it categorizes them by type of expense. And so where does our money go? So kind of the big 3 pieces of the pie are those public safety, highways and streets, and human services. Between those things are almost about 3/4 of what we spend money on. And it's very similar to last year to this year. Public safety did jump up to a bigger portion than it was in the past. And human services shrunk a little bit. Becky's crew's doing a good job at getting reimbursements and things like that to help. One piece that Dave had asked me about is the interest expense. He said, well, how can the interest expense be 2% of our expenses in 2021 and then 0% of our expenses in 2022? And the reason behind that is we did that bond refunding. And so in 2021, we paid off our old bond. And so we had our normal expenses. But then in 2022, which you're going to see this some throughout my presentation, accounting principles looks at that bond issue and says, we received a premium on our bond. And that was, we needed $8.8 million, but we didn't actually have to borrow $8.8 million. We only had to borrow $8.2 million. And then they just gave us the rest because they wanted our bond. So in 2022, accounting principles have us take that off of our expenses for our debt. Whether it makes sense or not, it's one of those accounting things that happens, and that is why it's all of a sudden our debt expenses didn't actually go to zero, but we got the benefit of that premium this year. Budget to actuals. So this, every year we adopt a budget. And then usually in December of every year, I bring you back some budget adjustments and say, we did our best on making our budget, but yet we had all of these things that changed during the year and we need to change our budget. And sometimes in December, when we're making those changes, we do a really good job at it. And sometimes we miss the mark a little bit. And sometimes they're just things that we know we didn't budget for that are going to be over the budget. So like the general fund, for example, we knew we were going to be spending a lot of money on our tax and CAMA system. And we didn't want to budget for it because we wanted to spend fund balance. And so when you look at the general fund at $700,000 spent more than the budget, really, there are a few overages that happened, some overtime expenses in the sheriff's office, some utility bills because the price of natural gas went sky high. But there's some of that too, that is that spending of reserves. Road and bridge, again, as we talk about road and bridge all the time, that is completely project related. And so it's really, it's hard when you see Mark's expenditures that appear to be over, well, his revenues were over too, so it ends up to be a wash. And Health and Human Services, Becky does an excellent job, and they are the ones that are spent less than what we're budgeted. Just an overview of the fund balance, and I just picked the 4 major funds and then just kind of lumped everything else together in the totals. So the general fund, and we talk about the general fund balance a lot, it seems like, which is a really good thing because we will kind of jump into that in the next slide. But the general fund balance did go down between the beginning of 22 and the end of 22. And again, some of that is spending those reserves that we knew we wanted to spend. And some of that is just unfortunately overages in expenditures. Kind of below the double line there, that's always something that I like to highlight, is some of that fund balance we can spend on anything. Some of the fund balance you guys have decided you want to say we're only going to spend it on this, and that's the assigned line. And then some of it, based on the donation we got or state statute, are committed to certain things. So for example, that committed or restricted, that is like our recorder's technology fund. That is by statute money that we get, and by statute money we can only spend on certain things. And so that is that restricted committed line. And that's something that during our budget process, I encouraged you guys to make sure you're reviewing of those departments that do have those balances and make sure they're spending those when they can, instead of using levy dollars. That assigned line in the general fund is that jail canteen fund. So a couple of years ago, we chose to set aside any revenues, excess revenues over expenditures we had from the jail canteen, and make a fund so that we had money for when the jail needs something for the inmates, like mattresses or a new wash machine or things like that, that the jail needs, there's money there so that those don't have to be within the budget. And then your unrestricted and unassigned is literally you can spend it within the general fund however you see fit. We'll move on to road and bridge. So road and bridge, you might look at it and go, oh my goodness, that's in the negative. The end of 2022 ended $524,000 in the hole. This is really bad. But in the end, this gets back to one of those accounting things. If you actually looked at our books, December 31st, 2022 of what was in the bank, there was over $1 million in the bank in the road and bridge fund. However, in accounting world, they want to bring it to a true number. So yes, your bank says you have over $1 million, but in reality, what money do you have? And so in reality, in 2022, we received $1.7 million of money we weren't supposed to receive till 2023. So they don't let us count that in our fund balance. And so that's how we end up in the negative, is then, we had the money, we're doing the project, but yet we weren't supposed to get it till 2023. So on our books, we can't show it as part of our fund balance, even though we have it and we're doing the work. Health and Human Services, again, added to the fund balance nicely. They do have a small restricted or committed balance, and that's that McV home visiting funds that have been great to carry that program through year after year. And then they just have their assigned funds for things that could be spent in Health and Human Services within that realm. The land fund, again, increased. That increase is directly related to those set asides that you all do for blight cleanup, for forest management, and then for Parks and Rec. And so that's what that restricted and committed fund balance is within the land fund. And that's why it increases. And then the land fund does have a unassigned or unrestricted fund balance that's sitting there supporting that department should it need be. And that might come into key here in the next few years when we're not necessarily having land sales. And then overall, all funds, you can see where we started, where we ended, and kind of those totals throughout everything, because there's a lot of other funds, each of the debts has a fund. There's the technology fund, the building improvement fund, those different little funds that all get added into that total. Unrestricted fund balance. So this is a number that we talk about a lot, is in the general fund, what is our unrestricted balance? So that is a number that we really focus on because that's really our rainy day fund of when something goes wrong, what do we have to plug the hole? And back in 2011, we were sitting in a really bad place, in my opinion. Our payroll at this point is about $650,000 a week or every 2 weeks. And if you only have $801,000 in the bank on a given time, I'm not sure how you comfortably operate. And so it's also like our cash flow availability. And so you can see the board back in 2011, they set this policy that they understood that this does not work, having only $800,000 fund balance. And they set a goal of having a fund balance of 20 to 35% of our expenditures. That has been something I think the boards over the years has really focused on and worked hard on. And you can see how over the years it has grown. Between 2021 and 2022, it did dip down a little bit because of those things that I mentioned earlier. But we're still within our policy. The secretary or the state auditor's office likes to see you at about 50% or like 5 months of expenditures. But at this point, that's a hard number to get to, because that is a lot. So the 20 to 35% was that board policy where they felt like they could attain, and really we did end up attaining it just 4 years later, and we've kind of stayed in that same level. This is the piece too that's important, because if we don't levy enough, then we're dipping into the fund balance, and that's how things end up in these very low fund balances, is you spending fund balance because you're having to still pay the same bills, but yet you don't have money to pay it with. Cash and investments. So just to give you an overview on 12/31 of how much money did we actually have in our bank accounts or our different accounts, and this breaks it down of where the funds are sitting. I always have to put a note of what the magic fund is, because when people think that, they think, well, I want a magic fund. Like, that sounds great. But that's the Minnesota Association of Governments Investing for Counties. And over the years, if you've seen this slide, sometimes you'll see our dollar switch. So a year ago, that magic fund had a very small number and our deposits had a bigger number. And the reason for that is literally I put the money wherever the interest rates are. We have to have money in the magic account and the deposit. So just our general checking and savings accounts, because that's where our cash flow money is to pay bills. But yet we want to make sure we've got it somewhere too that we're getting interest. And so at this point, magic is where the interest is coming from. And so that's where our funds generally will sit. And so as we need more money in our regular deposits or checking accounts, then I move it there only as we need it. And kind of on the right-hand side, you can see that reflecting. So 2018, we had $158,000 of interest earnings. And this is also reflective of what interest rates are. 2019, when I took over, then our interest jumped way up because I did some of that moving of the money to where the interest rates are. But then like you get to 2021, and that was when the federal funds rate was at 0. And there, no matter where I had the money, unless it was locked up in a CD before those interest rates hit rock bottom, we weren't making hardly anything. And 2023 has been a great year so far. And so you can see at this point through 8/31, we've basically met of what everything we made in 2019. And so my strategy with this cash and investments too is right now, for example, when interest rates are so high, I'm trying to change some of those things like our federal bonds and our certificate of deposits, get them out of those low interest rates and get them locked into those higher interest rates for longer terms. So that in 3 years from now, when interest rates go back to 1 or 2%, we're locked in at 5. And so I'm hopeful now that I've had the opportunity to do that. As interest rates will come back down, our interest earnings hopefully won't take a big tank like they did in 2021. One thing that I did want to note, if you're looking through the financial statements and you get to page 15 and you'd look, it would say 2022 interest earnings minus $203,000. And you'd go, what, Kelly? You just told me you had $331,000. How does that happen? And again, that is one of those accounting principles. So when our interest earnings are reported in here, they take our interest earnings and then they subtract off if we had to sell all of our investments today, which if you have to sell all of your investments today, you have to take a big loss on them. And then that's what in the financial statements, your interest earnings is reported as. So it doesn't reflect a good number in the financial statements, and that is why. It's one of those accounting principles that you have to do, because if you needed cash today of all of that, it would take away any interest earned you had. Debt. So as the years go on, this slide in my mind gets more exciting because 2031 used to seem so far away, and now it just seems pretty close actually. So we have our 3 big bonds that you can see where they started, where they are today in the current balance, and then where they were as of 12/31, because we've made payments now during 2023. So that's why the current balance is less. Our interest rates and then our payoff years, and kind of like just have a synopsis down below of over the years, our principal payments have gone up, our interest payments have gone down because the balances are smaller as you make payments. All right, into the actual audit report. So they issue 2 different opinions. One is just on our financial statements. And we received an unmodified opinion on that, which is the best opinion you can get. And they noted no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, which is also good because those material weaknesses mean that there potentially could be something that was reported wrong. And those significant deficiencies are there was something that was reported wrong, and we have none of that. And then they also look at our federal awards because we do receive more than $750,000 in federal funds in a year. And so we have to have that single audit. And when they looked at our federal awards, again, it was an unmodified opinion, and they found none of those material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Every year they choose a segment of our federal awards to look at. And so this year it was our COVID-19 fund and our child support enforcement fund. And so both of those came out clean. Last year, if you remember, we had some findings in the COVID-19 fund and in the medical assistance fund, which they reviewed those again, and those have been addressed. So again, this is just a review of what the options for an audit opinion are. And again, we received an unmodified opinion, meaning the statements are fairly representative in all material respects, and it is the best opinion you can get. That's what I have. Questions?
I have one, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go
It's
ahead.
just on the magic fund.
Yeah.
And it's just about our movement in and out. Is it easy to do that when you need it? And,
Right, so I
So-
do it all electronically.
okay.
So then is there a threshold where if you maintain it, you earn a better, of course, it's more money, you earn more, but is it?
Right, in Magic, there isn't. Magic is the entire balance gets the interest rate. We do have like a money market account at Stearns Bank. And we only get the good interest rate if we have over $500,000. But like the good interest rate at Stearns Bank is 3% right now, where Magic's paying over 5%. So I keep most of the money over in Magic.
Thank you.
The state auditor, because I'm the chair, talked to me, and verified the no findings, very pleased with the staff when they were, anything they've needed. The staff was easy to work with, and if anybody has any questions, she's more than willing to do a Zoom call or come and visit or whatever, but she was very pleased with the whole audit.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to say it takes an army to do this. And so you've
Sure.
got how many employees throughout the county that have worked to make this happen?
And it's not even employees that you think about because,
Right.
I mean, veteran services gets talked to, probation gets talked to, the sheriff's department gets talked to. So it's not even just the finance employees that you're thinking about, probably.
I remember being checked to see how we handled money for the land department. How did you receipt it? And just making sure that there was no embezzling. So I mean, it's all the way from the bottom to the top. So thank you to all of the
And
employees
it's not,
for the work you've done to get this.
and it's not just the money, as you know, Terry,
Right.
did the financial worker get the signature and the date?
Was it date stamped? That was a finding one.
The timestamp, right? You know, I mean, it's, there's a lot of things, did they send a certified letter? Is the signature on that certified letter, and you know how that all works. It's, they dig pretty deep.
We do.
So I believe, we need to accept this report.
Yes.
I'll make them.
I got a question.
Yes.
Is there, I mean, if you accidentally undervalue anything in here, is there any like risk to the county or to us if you?
That is what the audit does. I mean, it literally looks to make sure, is there any misstatement of numbers? And they did not find any.
Mr.
Yep.
Chair. So typically, there's something, out there, right? I mean, I'm thinking back to even we've had unmodified before, but there was still some little bit.
Right, there's a lot of years we'll have unmodified and then there'll be a little star of, but, which I mean, they give us some oral findings, some things of don't do that again, but they don't ever, this year they didn't rise to the occasion of written, of documented.
Well, that's awesome. So
And
thank
right,
you.
Yeah.
because they had a finding last year, they have to look at a higher percentage of
Our federal
our
award.
federal awards.
So rather than looking at 20% of our federal awards, they look at 40% of our federal.
They have to do that for one more year, right?
Right.
So, they're digging pretty deep here for a couple of years. I think they dig deep all the time, but
Yeah, and this year was interesting because we had a new audit team. So previously our audit team came out of St. Paul and this year they came out of Duluth. And so it was an interesting year just because they don't know us. They don't know our policies and our procedures. And so it took extra time this year of just educating them of how we work.
But I think it's a good thing.
Mhm.
Because we got a whole new set of eyes looking at what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's always a good.
Their
thing.
processes were very different. That was for sure.
Makes this report even better.
Yeah,
Make a motion to accept the report.
I'll second.
Thanks, Kelly.
motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore to accept the audit report. Any discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I oppose.
Okay. Manufacturing month resolution. Consider resolution proclaiming October as manufacturing month. Pine County. Yes, Leslie.
Hello, good morning. Still morning, yes. I'm Leslie Sauter, your Economic Development Coordinator. This is kind of an annual thing. Every October, we celebrate Manufacturing Month statewide. We come to you asking to proclaim it. We are setting up tours again this year. We're working with Pine Technical Community College and 3 manufacturers in Pine County to have hopefully all 4 of our high school students touring their facilities as well as the college to understand that a job in manufacturing might not be what they think it is. And, the biggest plug is you can come to Pine Tech for low to no cost and get a really great paying job in just a few short months, if not in just a few short years, and work right here in Pine County. So the good news about manufacturing in Pine County is it is growing modestly every year. In your proclamation, I've indicated some of the data from 2022. It's always a year behind, but they are showing growth. I was pleased to see that their wages went up about 5% over the year. So it's not really keeping up with inflation, but at least it's growing and they're responding to that need. Because it's still, like every other industry, they're in a workforce shortage as well. So any questions?
Anybody? We'd look for a motion for the resolution.
I'll make a motion for resolution 2023-46.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Moore, second by Waldham. Any discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll move on to updates, labor negotiations. I know you guys have been meeting.
Yeah, we did have just one. Yeah. So we did meet, working through some stuff.
We're on track, you think? Getting on
I
track?
think we have a full week next week.
Okay, thank you.
So
Thank you.
I'll be living here.
Relax band of Ojibwe meetings, we had meetings.
They were good. It's always good to work with the tribal members to see how we can get things to work closer and better together. I'm excited to see what Becky and Tammy can work out to see what we can do with the money that we set aside from our ARPA funds. And then the other meeting that we had, we talked a lot about what they have going on in our communities. And that was exciting to see the progress that they've made. Kind of sad to see some of the challenges that they're facing, but just really hopeful to see where things are going to be going with that.
If you don't know, they have a incubator site in Hinckley. And they got a big remodel project coming up. And they're gonna remodel a bunch of space. They got a daycare provider that's coming in. Coffee shop coming in. Something else, office space, I guess, that's getting remodeled.
So if you know people that are going into small businesses, they'll help you, they'll work with you to figure out different programs and how they can help you to succeed, which is amazing to have that accessibility. It's Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe.
Black span of
They're
Ojibwe.
building a business incubator so they can help businesses to succeed. Yeah.
That's if I can get some land.
Well, we at open forum, we listen, but we don't decide stuff. So we'll talk about it, or probably, I would guess, we'll send it to the auditor and land committee and they will talk about it.
Can I discuss what steps I need to take in order to try to?
If you wait till after the meeting, I'll be glad to point in the right direction.
Thanks so much.
Yep. Arrowhead counties, did anybody get there?
I did not.
Nope.
Snake River, I think we can eliminate one of these lines, right?
we'll find out in a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah, we got a public
So
hearing
there's a
coming
public
up.
hearing to eliminate the membership board, and it
Yep.
sounds like it might be a 3-1, so I think we're probably on a go, I hope.
Yep.
And then we did some work on the joint board to get that going and further ahead, and so it's exciting to see people working together on that.
Good. Technology was canceled. Legislative bonding committee. I was there. Jeff and Rod were there. They were the guys that did the talking. What we presented and what we're asking for in the next legislative session is a bonding request of $2.5 million to help with the remodel of our jail. So the house, they don't call it the bonding,
The House Capital Investment.
Capital
Committee.
Investment Committee. We're on a tour of eastern Minnesota, so they stopped at Pine Tech. And we had a chance to present our case and had a chance, because they also ate lunch there, so we had a chance to chit chat with them a little bit, so it's, you know, it's months before the session starts, so we have our name in the hat, and we'll see where it goes.
I got the message out. I think our staff did a good job.
Yeah, I do too. They did a
Mr.
very
Chair.
good, yes,
So we got a little bit of bonding money on the County 9 bridge, right?
right.
And that was, didn't we go on a little trip with
Well, that-
And that was years.
That was years ago, but actually, we're asking for it for the road improvements they're doing there now.
Yeah.
And we actually got some money, but it's
That's
not an immediate, I know where you're going,
That's
Doug.
what I meant.
It's not like where you asked for it last week and you're gonna get it next week.
Yeah.
You might, we asked for it. It might be show up in a bonding request 2 or 3 years from now. We're hoping it shows up next spring, but we know how it goes. We watched Pine Tech. Pine Tech had a chance to say thank you to that committee for their $22 million expansion program. They also had a chance to relay a message that I thought gets lost sometimes when the state makes an investment in a community. Within a week, a private investor stepped forward to buy the old nursing home and turn that into student housing. It's a multi-million-dollar project of private money that followed a significant investment by the state. So we're happy to see that. NLX is coming up.
On that meeting,
Yep.
I got a message from Andrew Johnson. He's the president
Yep.
or chair of that committee, and he's going to be stepping down. So just, I think that's why it was postponed.
Okay.
So, yeah.
HRA EDA.
Yeah, it was a good meeting. Standard meeting with the report on the two buildings that they're fully occupied. And then I'm gonna just jump to the kind of meat and potatoes there. Well, I should add that the tenants are adjusting to the new management, so that was come in and have a little discussion ahead of the meeting, so the whole board gets to hear them, so that seems to be kind of working, but it takes a little extra time to hear from them. Like anything. Then there was a revolving loan fund request that came through. It's out by Cloverdale for a gas station and a C-store. So we'll see where that goes. I think it's 2.4 million or something like that. I can't remember. Maybe. Yeah, that's a $2.4 million once all said and done. Then Leslie gave a presentation on the direct local housing aid that's coming into the county, and it's 110,000 for 2023 and 110,000 for 2024. And you have to spend it, I think, 4 years, but you have to report on it if you don't spend it. So the first one you have to start reporting, and then there's a year lag, and then you got to report on both. On how you use it and what it's being put forward on. I don't know. I don't have anything else. Dave, did you want to add something to that?
We could add that the commissioners did take a tour of the rock.
Yeah, this house, I forgot about that. So we toured the rock with the city and the architects that are kind of working on it. And there's two architects that were saying that this person, Megan Elliott, who does these historic restorations, she has quite a portfolio of jobs completed, but she just doesn't give up. So they really support her. Of course, they're involved, so, but they explained a lot of her past projects. So we toured the old school, which has changed a lot since I graduated from it. So anyway, it's gonna be a 31, if it goes through, it'll be a 31 room apartment building. And then that gymnasium portion on the south end, the city is gonna have ownership on that part and have something happening in that part. So it'll be, it's a collaboration on that. And I can't remember what was going in there.
The historical,
Oh, yeah, the Historical Society is gonna have their museum and stuff kind of in there.
They're gonna move from Ascot?
Hmm?
Are they gonna move from Ascot?
No, this is the local, just for, the city has a little historical that sits in that old bank building by the Ford garage.
Okay, okay.
And it gets a lot of visitors, so they'll just have it's set up better for visiting because they can, as the doors, they can go in and go around and look in the old gym, so. We'll see what happens there.
Are the projects that she's done, are they the ones up in Duluth, like?
Yeah, that jail, yeah,
Nice.
yes,
She
that's
does
right.
do nice work.
So that's all I have on that, Mr. Chair, unless you want to add something.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I would just note that they did, the HRA EDA did approve their budget and a copy is in your packet for the 2024.
Next, we had a legislative meeting with Senator Rarick and Representatives Nelson and Drosseth. Josh and I met with them. For upcoming legislation, we have talked about the casino tax. Just to refresh your memory, the casino collects the sales tax. State sends half their collection back to the tribe. State keeps half and they pay Pine County 10%. Or any county that has a casino in it gets 10%. We're saying we should get more than 10% of that half. So the tribe is in support of that. They've told us our legislators, especially Senator Rarick, is thinks we should get way more than 20%. So they're gonna put some feelers out among their caucuses and see where we're at. I think mostly we had a really good chat about our relationship between our county government and the state government, which I think we need to have because we're the agents of the state in so many programs that they can't lose sight of that, because every time they want to cut their budget, it's really cutting us up at the knees. So I think it's good to keep a real open dialogue with them. Josh, you got anything to add?
I guess I would just reiterate that yeah, it's very nice to be able to sit at a table and, I mean, them guys were like, what can we do to help? And they collectively chatted about it and that brainstormed a bunch of stuff right there. And they're willing to go to bat for us, whether or not anything comes out of it. It's just nice to have that support at the state level, so.
Central Region EMS.
Yes, I went to that meeting. The $190,000 grant came in for general operations, and then there's $30,000 for training and $60,000 for naloxone. Naloxone demand is still high. There's been a lot of requests, Pine included, and then there's some grant activities that happened, that outreach happened. Pine City Fire Department got AEDs, Brook Park Fire Department got AEDs, and
There's a state paramedic grant that if you're a student or if you go to take that field to be a paramedic, there's tuition money available. So I don't know, we're working on getting that out there too, but I don't know if Pine Tech has that program or who, but I know they do EMT stuff, level stuff there. Another thing I wanted to touch on is that Dr. Tangy, that is the director there now, he is really on board with the opioid stuff, and he works at a North Memorial ER. That's where he's from. But he says when we have our meetings and it's really important when EMS comes in and reports to all the boards, like this, even your county boards, South County Commissioner says, make sure you push on your EMS services for their quality and their performance, which we did a little bit when we had our ambulance service here, I think, a month or so ago. But he said it's really important because the number of EMTs and paramedics are coming in is just dropping like crazy. So they're trying to recruit. It's just like everywhere else. There's a whole thing to recruit because it's so important out there in that. The more rural the county is, the more important the EMS service is. So we have to keep that on our radar. That's pretty much it. So.
Lakes and Pines, we had our annual meeting last night at the Brame Event Center. Food was good. The meeting was okay, but no, it was fine. We approved the budget for the coming year, and elected new officers on the 13th vice president or something, so. And other, Terry, you must have other.
I have some others, yep.
Yep.
So one of them is, JJ, you had asked about cannabis at state parks and national parks and that type of stuff when we were doing our resolution. So the state Minnesota Parks and Trails had a meeting and that's what they were discussing was cannabis. And I said,
Yep.
Steve was on there too. Basically you cannot use cannabis in the state parks, however, or in the city parks and state parks. I suppose that was more state. But one of the things that they did say is that if there's a party rented, or a park is rented for a property that they may be able to use cannabis there. So a lot of it is the same thing, looking at policies and how that's going to be handled. Restrict in policies, products cannot be sold such as county and state town fairs, that type of stuff. But it was a long talk about what they can allow and what they can't allow and how they're going to handle it if they see it and that type of stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna add, on our upcoming meetings, it says Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails Annual Meeting,
Mhm.
Wednesday, October 4th.
Mhm.
Where was that at? Was that at the zoo in Byron, Minnesota, or where did you have your meeting?
This one was online. This one is in 2 days
Okay,
and it is online.
because this also is gonna have something on the cannabis, and I was just wondering who's gonna attend that one then?
I did sign up for it and it's on Zoom. So I'm gonna just do the Zoom. I'm not gonna drive there.
Okay, yeah, because there's no time on this either, so it must be on the calendar.
I don't know. I don't know if it's on the calendar.
I'd take the Zoom info if you could send that to me later.
Okay.
That'd be interesting. Thank you.
Another thing was suicide prevention. It was a really interesting class that they did. That was through the Central Minnesota Jobs and Training. They said no one can stop a suicide. It is inevitable, so they went through the things, that we all sit and dwell on. It's like I could have stopped them, but we really can't. But we can listen to them and talk to them. And you need to take all signs seriously. But it was 2 hours of things to watch for and how to talk to people and how to reference what's going on in them or with their lives at that point. That was interesting also. And then I had the Shack retreat last week. And one of the things that we found out is we have some money, the state was given some money by the federal government. And so there was a committee that was put together that would determine how that money was going to be spent within public health. That's strictly public health. And we had Sam Lowe on that committee from Pine. what they decided is that we're gonna get a base amount of $75,000, and then they'll be depending on what else goes on there, but we cannot use that for budget. It's strictly what they'll be using for that. The other thing that I was told while I was there is that our employee Samla was a celebrity in that group, that she is just the initiatives and the things that she comes up with to help the residents of Pine County is, they said, amazing. And so we know it's not just Sam, it's Sam and her whole team of people that work with her, but it was fun to hear somebody from a different group say, oh my gosh, she's a celebrity, you get to work with her. I sat in on a data collection project that Olmsted County did. And it was really interesting. I was thinking of you, Jeff, because they can determine how many deaths are from Pine County residents from like opioid use or fentanyl, and then how many of them are people driving through. That type of stuff. So, but then the staff that they had to hire to get this and the money that they spent to do this project is crazy. So, they did the southwest or the southeast region. So I think it was 5 counties that were involved with it, but, yeah, it was a lot of money being spent to get the data so that they know how to serve better. That's my others.
Anybody else? Otherwise, we have some upcoming meetings. I will not be at the next board meeting. My granddaughter's wedding is taking precedence over the board meeting. I guess I should be happy to say. But anyway, I will be traveling that day. So Terry will be the chairperson.
Just a reminder, our district meeting is happening.
Yes.
And so Wednesday, October 11th, it's at 7 o'clock at the Sandstone Library to talk about the FRCs. And then on the 12th, it's at the casino starting at 8.
Calendar?
It is.
Yep. Any other business? If not, we'll declare the meeting adjourned.